Hi and welcome. In this tutorial we will integrate a feedback functionality to an already existing application without using one single line of code. Let's get started. To begin, let me give you an overview of the tutorial. First, we will create a SQLite connector which sends our collected data to a database, and then we are integrating this functionality via our data services to our UI. First, a connector using SQLite will be set up to ensure persistency. For that we will create a new SQL connector with the name feedback_mobile samples, and for the endpoints we are selecting custom. The data source is SQLite. Once that's done, a database schema for feedback functionality needs to be created. Go to the database designer and create a new schema feedback_mobile samples and select our created SQLite connector as the underlying connector. Now we need to create a new entity in the database called feedback, with 3 fields: ID, author, and message. Now that the schema is ready, it will be deployed to the database. Next, navigate to the applications list and look for the mobile sample app to edit. Double-clicking it will open the application editor. To start, a small icon will be added to the header bar. For that we are dragging the widget group for icon directly onto the header bar. Let's choose an appropriate icon. How about the feedback icon? Perfect. Now, a new screen will be created by clicking on New Screen. This will initially be an empty screen. By selecting Show Nav button on the screen property panel, we can add a button to navigate back. To collect feedback, we are dragging the widget group feedback card onto the new empty screen, and an already pre-configured widget group is inserted. For our feedback input to fill out the entire width, we are changing the render type from div to bare, and we are setting our height to auto. Further, we are removing the icon from the input by disabling the show icon switch. Now let's work on the business logic. We are creating a new user story called navigation. First, drag a subscribe event onto the canvas and select the On Nav button press event. Next, add a navigation action shape onto the canvas, select main and connect both shapes and save the story. Then, the button we just created will be dragged and set up so that pressing it navigates to the new screen with the feedback form. Next, an auto field for the username will be created. For that, go to the data workbench and create a new auto field and give it the name username, and select user as the field type. Switching back to the designer, the new screen will be cleaned up by removing 2 feedback items. We are simply selecting the last 2 items of our list and press delete. Now we need to configure what happens after someone clicks on the send button. We are creating a new story called feedback, and we drag the input field onto the canvas. Next, we drag a data service shape onto the canvas and select create data. For our underlying database, we are using our created SQLite database. We are finishing this up by setting auto commit to true. For our input parameters, we are selecting author and message, and then we are using the auto field shape and connect that one to author, and the value of the input field as our text. We want new feedback to load directly after someone clicks on the icon, so we are using our subscribe shape with the event on before show. Now, we need to map our collected data to our list. For that, we are selecting the item of the list in the preview, and then we are setting the data source to data service and selecting our feedback database. And finally, we are dragging the data source from the property panel onto our process designer. Now, the only thing that's left to do is binding the data to the correct property. Go back to the property panel and click on the binding icon next to sender. Now, drag the data source item shape onto the canvas, select author, and save the binding. We are doing the exact same thing for our message. Open the binding editor for the text property, drag a data source item shape onto the canvas and select message, and finally, save the binding. One last thing, we are connecting the output port from our create data service to the load data service so that when someone leaves feedback, the list gets immediately refreshed. Let's deploy the app and see if everything is correct. Let's hop on the Simplifier mobile client and try to give feedback. Great, it works. We successfully used data services to integrate feedback functionalities to an already existing application. Thank you for watching this tutorial. See you in the next one. Stay awesome.